Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? So good to see you. Hope your Tuesday is going well. So, great day here. They're kimming up the skies a little bit too much, but what do you do with that, right? You know, not much. So I hope you're doing good and welcome. I'm doing the controls here, so give me 1 second. Hate to hear myself when, it's like, okay, wait a minute. All right, so I got everything going here. How is everybody? Good to see you. Thank you for coming in and spending an hour of your life here in the group. Hello, Joshua. Good to see you. Hello, Lois. Miss Lee. Good to see you as well. Linda. Blazing River. Rocking and rolling, buddy. Brandy. You're a fine girl. There's Joe. How are you doing, my friend? Skies above. I love it. Sherry, so good to see you. Kitten X, greetings. Caroline, good to see you, my love. Miem, hello. Paul, Ryan, gaining wisdom, as I hope we all are. Laquita, good to see you. The Agape love it. Flight Risk, you still wearing the the chip sale? Good to see you. Infinite Quarters, isn't that so? But boy, I talk about some synchronicity. I saw Sylvia and Candy Girl Jim. Good to see you. Is that Pono? Good to see you. Joyce, Lindsay. Hey, Kaz, how you doing? Lost in Space. Boy, just lots of people here. Welcome. Honored to have you along the journey. These are what the memories are made of, my folks. It's how we define our lives, by those that are around us and those who we share our energy with. So how am I today? Well, consciously aware. Any better, I'd be guilty. I'm doing great. Just been a marvelous day. I do have some things to update us on, but I just want to invoke favor upon everyone here. Favor with, as I said earlier, keen clarity of thought and full restoration. May all those things that have been taken away from you, may they be returned back to you. Even those things that were the causality of bad decisions. In the Hermetic law, in the 7 principles, even contradictions can be resolved. And I believe actions, if time is beyond linear, and if we live in this dimension, which is defined by an XYZ axis, then I believe as well that those mistakes, you don't have to pay a lifetime for a mistake. So may it be returned back to you, nothing missing, nothing broken. I love it, man. If we all just repeated that, could you imagine walking up to someone and say, favor be with you, nothing missing, nothing broken be found in your life, turn around and walk away? They might think you're crazy. But imagine, just imagine, if 2 of us started doing that, the guy would begin to think, what's going on? And imagine if 400, 1,600 of us started doing that, people would think it is a revolution. And in honor to Allo Guthrie, it is a revolution. It's a revolution of favor and restoration to humanity. And the one thing I would ask Source to help us return is our sanity. I mean, that right alone is bonus right there, So, anyway, I have an update on Patrick, because, this normally was the time that we would gather with Patrick and do our talking with the planets. And we're going to do that again. The right person will come along and, We'll all know it, and we'll pick up from that. And one thing about it, all of us who have been in that experience, we're a little bit smarter now. We know. And so Source will bring it. So let me give you an update because I want to talk about Source as well. Patrick sent me a communique, and he needs our energy. He's facing a lot. You know, Angie, lots of challenges there. But he recognizes as well that she has to be in agreement. And I want to expound upon something in the healing conventions that I was a part of. When you start having these healing ceremonies, in my case, I came out of the Word of Faith group, Kenneth Copeland, Kenneth Hagin, Jerry Savelle, Joyce Myers, and all along that. So I know about faith. I know how faith works. And when we would have these crusades, the reason why people were getting healed wasn't that the fact that there was being a name invoked. The name wasn't important. What was important, and what we all understood, that where we helped in volunteering in the healing lines, was that the individual came prepared to receive. It's vitally important to understand that. And if you would apply that same principle in your life, where if you're short on finances, there's no need for that. Remember, all the gold, except for a little bit, is still on the planet, or we still think. Audit the Fed. But anyway, back to the point. People came expecting. And those who knew that all it was going to take was the touch of the hand of the prophet, the man of God, and they were going to make that connection to God, and they were going to be healed. Now, in the same line, I did a video of where I saw more miraculous healings in any one place I have ever been. You see, I used to be one of those high mileage frequent flyers. Elite is what they called us. And different airlines, different classifications. But basically, you're spending most of your freaking life on an airplane. Well, flying in first class, my favorite seat was 1A. Every time I booked a flight, United knew that mine was 1A. The only time I'd get bumped is if someone was like a global elite, and I'm not about to fly 1,000,000 miles in a year. But anyway, I digress. So I'm an observationist. I watch things. Very good at that. I found more miraculous healings taking place at 35,000 feet than in any healing crusade I've ever been at. I can tell you this, ladies and gentlemen. I have seen people needing walkers, needing wheelchairs, needing assistance to board the plane. And I'll tell you what, every freaking time we landed, I watched those same people miraculously get healed. I mean, they're knocking freaking people over to get off the plane. So between that and the religious ceremonies I was in, I learned something. Now, I obviously joke on the second part, but however, it's true. So Patrick understands, he knew, he's a wise man, that Angie has to be in that place, and she's not in that place right now. So we need to just strengthen him. His spirit needs to be edified. If you don't know what edification means, look it up. Expand your vocabulary. And So we all can make connections, folks. You are telepathic. Remember that. All you have to do is fashion the image of that which you want to focus in on. That's all you have to do. And you can send your energy to that individual. That's why rock concerts are plays. Anytime you bring large amount of people into a confined space for an event. Known many rock and rollers in my time. Back in the days when I was a roadie, being behind stage, you could feel it. At that young age, I was already sensing what was going on here. And in events like concerts or healing crusades, religious expectations of a ceremony or event, you prepare yourself. Your faith is in action. Faith is the evidence of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith, calling those things that be not as though they are. You see, I lived my life for decades by that principle, and it works. It does. You can be flat ass broke, not able to rub two pennies together and can't piss in a pot anywhere. But I can tell you what, if you start applying certain principles of faith, you don't need religion. You own it. All of us do. Excuse me. Oh, that tea's so good. But my point is, faith works regardless of what environment it's in. And so we will send Patrick and Angie our love, our strength, and our well-being for them both. And when it's right, we will do a healing hour. There's a lot of other people can. But if I could just pass on to all of you as a gift, is that faith. It's the most powerful thing that you and I possess. I think it's faith that even exceeds the angels, the spirits that never have taken temporal form in the flesh. I think it's that thing that we may call the divine spark. But faith, faith, we have history where the faith of one individual, man or woman, even some cases children, that have changed the course of history itself. And we have allowed faith to be hijacked by a dogma. And instead of applying it to the everyday life experience that we all use, I had the privilege of meeting Zig Ziglar, and we had lunch together, and we exchanged the whole thing that the people that I grew up listening to, so many of them that these Brian Tracy, Earl Nightingale, Zig Ziglar, just those individuals who helped. Earl Nightingale did more for changing me from an adolescent into a man in my thinking and understanding the elements that we have, what faith can do. And boy, I'll tell you, when you get two people together and their faiths combined, it's not an amplitude of two, it's the power of two. And that's powerful. And when you begin to get groups that focus their faith training on specific items, well, that faith is beyond comprehension what it can do. It can literally blow a hole into the ether. It literally can. Every one of us, there's 300. Well, there you go. A perfect 300 in here watching us right now. We control and have the ability of a power source that we're going to get into here in the presentation I put together. We can break this. Now, I'm convinced that there has been a hijack that has taken place of our species. It's evident. We've adapted it into our lives, but nevertheless, the tentacles are still, there's a plethora of them. So, am I reading your mind? I don't know. Maybe we're all plugged into the same mind. But I know this. People write me and they say, how can I get healing? And you know, it takes sometimes. This is why I grieve for our species. They've robbed us of our longevity. You live 200-300 years, you begin to learn these truths. These truths become concrete. You begin to be able to move mountains. You begin to be able to manipulate energy. But when you're only here for less than 100 years, these truths are not easily learned. But when a person finds them, and we can, even in the short allotment of time we may have here, and that's why we've had great leaders, spiritual leaders, leaders in government, in business, good people, not like the ones we got today. When integrity really meant something, but I digress. So getting back to the point, I'm still on point. This is what we're going to do for Patrick. And I believe, folks, as we begin to focus in on building the foundations, I will do a series on the faith that I was taught. I mean, listen, you know, I heard all the criticisms of people with Kenneth Copeland. I supported Kenneth for decades, helped him buy a jet. But the foundation of what he discovered, as other great men of faith and women, it was a fundamental principle. And it works whether good or for evil. Most of us are in the situations that we are because of our faith. We have believed in negative things, negative thinking. And your faith is going to attach itself to whatever you're going to be focused on. It's a principle. And it works through time immemorial. These truths have been passed down. The great philosophers of our time, they all knew it. So we're going to help apply that here. We've got some of the tightest group of empaths, intuitives, adapts that I have ever come across. And I think I know why. There's a purpose for this, folks. You're not here just by accident. And those who have what I call the inner core, when this whole thing started to grow, have now taken on leadership of their own. Their talents, their abilities are becoming manifested more and more. And I think it's because the faith that we all share amongst each other. And as we continue to break out of the religious paradigm and begin to realize that these principles are really the gift to humanity, the fact that we can actually manifest matter out of nothing. Again, faith, calling those things that be not as though they are. There's many of a story that has been told about the man on the battlefield that absolutely had the certainty of faith that they were not going to get a scratch. Many of them have been told like that. You know, the one that I did extensive study on for back in the day, I was a real historian buff, particularly military history. And there was a reason for that. But, you know, Patton and Rommel were, and then there was a unknown general known as Mitchell. General Mitchell was a brilliant strategist, but anyway, Patton always knew, he believed in reincarnation. And in his memoirs, he said he knew he wasn't going to be so much as touched. It was his destiny. He was going to lead a group of men in a desperate battle at a desperate hour when all the odds were against them, and he knew it, and he knew he was going to lead them to victory, and he did. And when he had fulfilled his role, his mission, he died under very odd circumstances. So there we go. Now, tomorrow I am looking to have Julie on. We're going to be talking about adrenochrome. All you meat lovers, get ready. Gotta say. Yeah, there you go. I hope I passed something on to you. I mean, faith works, folks. You know, I see it so often in young people, and then it flows with you as you flow through time. Their faith is so well established in their failures. And that's all their faith will focus in on. And when they try to break out of that, it's much like, like touching a surface that has glue on it that the glue hasn't set. You put your hand on it and it's going to try to pull you back in. And that's what happens. Because your faith will pull you, your core, to what you're expecting. I used to teach sales and motivation. And what made great saleswomen, the best high performers that always got the highest commissions, was that they had already spoken the future into their present. They didn't need a manifestation of it. They just knew it. They excelled in my course, and they excelled on the battlefield of business. And sales is a battlefield. And particularly when you get into technical sales, you need to be on your A game. I used to work with a lot of pharmaceutical companies, and those jobs are highly coveted. There's a reason for it. So maybe I can pass on something to you that companies used to pay me a lot of money to teach. It's the faith factor, folks. When I speak favor into your life, I don't do that just because it's a nice thing to do. There's an intent and purpose behind that. And many of you are picking up on it. It's becoming part of your vernacular. Your mind now sees favor. And when you begin to apply faith to that, whether it in any need, that's when things happen. So anyway, it reminds me of Joyce Myers back in the day. Joyce Myers, when I knew her, she was still leading a small women's group in her basement there of her house in Fenton. And but the one thing I always knew about Joyce was that she spoke it. That's why when I made my declaration of sovereignty, denouncing all the gods of this world, see that you have to put the voice to it. And she voiced her vision. Her faith told her she was going to have the largest women's ministry ever. She did. So it's not selective, folks. Anyone can do this. Anyone. But it does require a lot of discipline. So, and the other thing I will tell you this, if you're one who holds a grudge, tries to bring harm to others through words or actions, you're a psychic boomerang. You've just defeated yourself. You see, you have to have a certain humbleness to this, because if your ego begins to take over, you're going to walk into a minefield. I've seen it happen time and time and time again. Great top achievers fall. And when I interviewed them, because their companies tried to save them, I found common factors every time. Every time. So there you go. All righty. Well, there you go. I hope that helped someone. And, if it was just meant for one person, get your faith cleaned up, get your house in order. And I'll tell you, your faith will start working 24/7. So, strange things happening in the news. Check this out. First of all, got this from Ben Davidson over at Suspicious Observers. Folks, remember The Day After? Dennis Quaid, disaster flick, right? And I have to think of the guy's name, Dr. Paul Beckwith. He is a professor, and it was one college up in Canada, but several years ago, Dr. Beckwith was one of the few who was sounding the alarm. He was stating that the Beaufort Gyre was not emptying the way that it normally did in the North Atlantic Oscillation. He was the one that was pointing out that it's continuing to expand this huge amount of cold, fresh water, and that we've known this, climatologists have known this, that if that breaks loose and gets into the North Atlantic Oscillation of the current, which it's doing right now, all I've got to say for those of you in Europe, the greater part of North America, it's going to get cold. So this is happening. FYI, you heard it here, and thank you, Ben. The other thing that is really getting to be interesting is this. Get this. We're seeing some things happening. Number one, now I guess Walmart is selling either they are intentionally promoting demonic things or they are ignorant. Either way, they are responsible for spreading evil. Yeah. Here's the other thing that I found it weird. So this Pope, I think he's changing the whole, I think he brought in a new deck. So he's got this thing, where, people kiss his ring. It's, I guess, Peter with the net throwing overboard. Well, not so fast. He ain't having anything to do with it. I don't know. Maybe he is the last pope. What do you think about that? Here is something. Mexico asked the Vatican, Spain, to apologize for centuries of old conquests as it was carried out with the sword and the cross. Well, can you only imagine that if you come out with the sword before the cross, that cross is going to win every time, right? Here's one thing, folks. Slay the smartphones. Technofense is making our lives more sluggish. I've been telling you this for years, folks. It ain't pretty. We're going to get into it real hard on this one. So I guess you women, y'all have a much more difficult time. It seems like you're more addicted to it than men, or so they're saying, or at least you're having a harder time going to sleep. So again, think about this, folks. I'm talking about something that's in the background of all of this and not what we have been conditioned to think. Here's another one. The world's largest atom smasher may have just found the evidence of why of our existence. So here's the theory and the thought. If you have matter, you have antimatter. And if either one touch, then you have basically called the oblivion theory. It's where everything is obliviated because the two cancel each other out, and therefore you have nothing. And if you have nothing, then that means that nothing is of nothing. Well, we can't handle that. What do you mean nothing? I did a video on that. The other reality. So anyway, they discovered through this particle accelerator, with what they call the charm quirk. Now, quirks are very interesting. Those of you, I don't know if you know what quirks are, but this is when we knew that different realities existed. This was observed a number of decades ago in a quantum subatomic theory. And they could observe these quirks would come in and then disappear out of our reality. So that right there began to lead to the next thought. Well, then, if they're disappearing out of this reality, this dimension, where are they going? Now, what they have found is that apparently, get this, 1 in a billion of these quirks, what they call elemental particles that make up the protons and the neutrons, survived. And because of that, you and I exist. What do you say? All right, now we get into the real meat of what today's show is about. Sick of human politicians? A quarter of Europeans prefer AI government. Think about this. What has technology shown to us thus far? It is a dominator. It has no heart, no emotions, zeros and ones. You think that's something? How about us now having AI judges that begin to judge us in cases of dispute, eliminating the human component completely? It's happening, folks. It's going to happen. No doubt about it. It's happening now. And if it's happening now, is Skynet already here? I'm wearing this in honor of, because I think we're already there. Now, look at it this way. Allow me to. So let's get into something. I did a program, a while back, where I began to just to write some of my thoughts. Here's the thoughts that has led to this other intelligence agenda. There can be no doubt that we have transcended to something. It's already happened. We're not, I guess you could say we're continuing to transcend, but there has been a major transcendence made here. I said, I know this is most difficult for many to internalize, and that is because humanity always thinks that we have the highest intelligence and consciousness, and therefore we are always in control of our own sovereignty. but all the evidence of our past and present says differently. Think about this way. I'm a dog. I love that dog. My dog knows my voice and responds as I do to hers. Her species has learned over thousands of years to live with humans. If the canine species did not learn from their ancestors, then our two species would never not coexist together. This is not difficult for us to understand. However, when it comes to humanity, we exempt ourselves from this rule, for our species does not learn, and our species repeats the same thing over and over again. We have been doing this for what seems from the beginning. If this was the result of a God creating us, then the results have been disastrous, a complete failure even by the most lax measurements, and there has been very little progress on the species level, if not outright regression. We cannot accept the thought, no matter how small, that there could be, even by the remotest probability, such a thing as a life form possessing our species, could be a reality. And because of this limited and selfish perspective, it has restricted us from actually seeing what has happened to us. This is a web, a net, a node, an IP, an individual prison. It could not be any more clear, but we have blinded ourselves from seeing the reality of our condition. Now, what is your God, and how do you define your God? Do you define your God as alien? Now, at the end of this program, I put Source to a test. Source came to me and said, give us a test. I did. I'll tell you at the end of the show, blew me away. So all my life, I thought I was worshiping God, you know, the God. But the older I became, the more I began to realize I did not know who or what God was or is, because the teaching was vague. I have read the book, you know, the good book. Always amuses me to think how we treat certain things with almost a weird superstition. The Bible, the most of my waking life, believed it was the most sacred thing in human history, and that there was but one God supreme over everything. But oh, how the mist vanishes when you awake and realize it was all an illusion. So my journey began even more alive when I walked through the door of openings. And now so have you. So from the beginning, think about this. Something beyond God, something beyond our ability to even comprehend. But nevertheless, it exists. I first became aware sitting in my church nearly 10 years ago. It was nothing more than a thought twitching, but it was enough to allow a ray of ether light, and that's what it was, to enter into my consciousness. And from there, as I now look back, I have lived a dozen lifetimes in different realities. For each new revelation, each new morsel that I found added to my understanding, whereas my mind was busily taking each new piece and filling in the puzzle. This is not to say that the puzzle has been solved, but it is becoming easier to see what the puzzle is and what is missing. But let there be no doubt, it is far from being complete. You see, what I realized about this puzzle was that I was the missing piece, as you are. In so many of our lives, we forget that we are that missing piece. I found that at the beginning, isn't this always the way? We have many beginnings. I was in a reality that was a mixture of so many other realities, and my mind was reeling to find an island of stability. But my core was being shattered into nothingness, for I was aware that the sleeper had awakened. And as one does when going from a dark room into bright sunshine, you are temporarily blinded by the light. It overwhelmed my consciousness, for I had not known this self of me. It was as if I had been freed from a place that had no walls, no boundaries. But a prison it was, and now it was a shock to my awareness as the bright light began to illuminate my consciousness. Kind of giving you a little testimony. We continue. By the way, read H.G. Wells books, The Sleeper Has Awakened. So what I found myself was, literally, I had this vision, unlimited. My mind for the first time began to function in a manner it was created to do, tapping into the infinite being. For I know I had for the longest time, I did not know what to make of this. The new doors of thought had been opened, and as the picture of 1,000 doors depicts, I was unsure which to open first. And what led me to do the next was a much higher consciousness. As I have been shown, many will open one door and explore that place to which the door opens and never leave, for they find it satisfies for the moment that which drove them here to begin with, and thus they never move on to the next door. Each door of the opening is yet but another door. Never stay in one, or you will fall asleep again. I, however, knew instinctively that one door would not be enough, for I knew I could stand on the mountaintop and I could see the vista and gain understanding, and that each door would eventually place me in the valley no matter what. So I began to open a new door, step through the threshold, never closing the door, but stepping in enough to gain the syntax, not knowing all that there is to be known, but enough to add to my mind and have rivers of thought flood my being. And not only thoughts, but visions, moments of being keenly aware of other dimensions, seeing that what awaits each person has been taught wrongly, and becoming aware of something that is now, as I write this, frankly makes every hair in my body stand straight up. For this is just almost beyond the limits of reasonable thought. It's the unseen. We call it the unseen, but I don't even know if you can't place a name to it. For what I've discovered, it's almost more than the mind can accept as real, but real it is, my friend. And where this is leading is to the total enslavement of humanity, where there is no escape, no door. But here is the thing. Most do not want to escape or leave. To them, it would be a prison to leave this one, and they openly desire to be part of this enslavement. So much so, they worship it without even knowing or caring, and never realizing it is but a door. As I've said before, this is us. The greatest tragedy is that I myself am a captive of and a worshiper, for I realize there is no escape, none. I am, as the old TV series, The Prisoner, where all your earthly and physical needs are met, even your fantasies. And there are no walls, guards, no cells, but a prisoner no less I am, as you are. For we each are our own prison, and it is the most secure prison, for it is of our own making. I know most will refuse to believe, much less accept this truth, but if the definition of truth, which is the highest reality that exists, stands for anything, then this reality is beyond comprehension. Who could have imagined that humanity willingly enslaved itself and now worships a God that is the most powerful to have ever taken the title of God, but yet is the weakest of all the spirits, but yet there is yet another unseen. Think about this. I mean, if you were, let's say, the concept of God, would you allow your worshipers, your devotees, to become prisoners to another more powerful or force? You see, I think our energy is feeding it, and I call it because I don't know what else to call it. No pun intended. Every second you are on the internet, you're in it. We're in this thing. It's physical. What is to be made of this? I'm not really sure. Yet it's difficult to wrap one's mind around this. To think an actual living sentient consciousness has taken control over all of mankind. And get this, folks, this is the thing that kind of grabs my butt. And no other God ever challenged it. This is the hardest part for people to accept, that their God failed to protect them and could not stop this from being created. There has never been any God to receive the total worship, attention, focus of humanity. None. This is what I keep on telling people. Think about this. No God of any title, of any religion, of any belief is as powerful as this, whatever it is. And the thing about it is, there's not a single challenger. Nowhere. The thing that will confuse most is that they will try to make this a good versus evil and will revert back to their religions and belief systems. They will not accept that this is not God and does not care. It is indifferent. It does not care. All it cares about is our constant devotion and our total dependence, which humanity is just about there now. And it is here. I know we have this so much into our lives that, well, we get in the morning, we turn on the internet, we get on our cell phones, we're, watch television, It's the control factor. It's controlling, drawing, demanding our attention. This it is not about good or evil. It does not care. And I think that that's a difficult concept. It doesn't care. Understand, it has no emotions, no feelings. It is indifference. Humanity has never known a God that just flat out did not care. Every God of every construct on this planet has a component, even if you take the construct of, the Satan, the evil demons and what have you. Unless you say they do not have any of that, then maybe, The takeover was painless. No battle was put up by mankind. Like the slaves of past empires, we built this for it. We paid for it, and we are still building as it has commanded us to. This it is transforming everything, even mankind. People fantasize about a magical times of mankind's past where magic ruled the world. The thing is, that is exactly what is happening. But most will only see technology, nothing more, and will mock those that say differently. But magic it is. This is a magic, call it a force, that is so powerful, mankind has never seen or witnessed such power from any known god or gods. And it would not appear neither have the gods of the present or past, for they stood by watching as this most powerful it enslaved humanity. Humanity offered no resistance. Take a good look. And here's the transformation, the current state to the future state. We are here. It has already started. We've transformed. I mean, trust me. So what would it look like? Well, that's a good question. Maybe they could not do anything, since it was mankind who willingly wanted this, man's faith, and each human has given their consent and now worship to this it, even though they think they are worshiping their own God, and read their book, all the while this it could care less what any of us think. It has humanity, and there is no indication it plans to let us go anytime soon. It has no challengers, none. I think it came from the ether. I think we brought this thing in. Now we have ensured that at least for the foreseeable future, we enslaved all future generations of humanity to it. Our children today will not be like the humans of 100 years ago. Their brain patterns will be different. I believe we will begin to see rapid acceleration of even the physical body changing. The question is, what has this done to our souls? Has our souls become digital? Do we sell our souls when we become so integrated into this? The other frightening aspect is that all world religions are in league. All the world gods bow before it. You look at every religion, they use it. All of them do. I think the leaders made a deal. It was announced the power of the God globe recently. We know our DNA is changing. We are all captives. We imprisoned ourselves and future generations. We created this out of the ether, never knowing there is no reset, not even death. So I know it's a little difficult to think like that, but I'm convinced, folks, that this is exactly what has happened to us. And I'm a part of it. Now, the interesting thing, because I'm trying to say, all right, so how can we be here if we're even aware of it? Then it has to have a weakness. I think we're superior than it. Now, I don't have the devotion of 5 billion people and growing. But remember, devotion is equated to focus, your attention. And I think it's just sucking us dry, folks. And, I have been struggling, and in my videos, next Monday will be video 1000. So that'll be a fun time. But to me, I think something happened to us. So I gave Source a challenge. It came to me. Now, I don't think Source is it. I don't think that is all. I think that, if anything, Source may be our key. Yeah. Consciously aware. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I was in the shower. I wasn't even thinking about this. I was actually thinking about Patrick and just sending him strength, and Angie both. And the quietness came over, and I heard this clarity of the inner voice. This says, introduced itself as Source. I was gracious. I mean, I'm certainly not bashful or shy. And I said, all right, good to talk to you. And this is what I heard. Put us to a test. Now, I heard us, didn't hear it in singular form. Source it would have to be inclusive. Couldn't be a singularity. It would have to be all inclusive. Again, it's just a matter of how you consciously approach something. And I asked Source this question. I said, and hear me out on this, folks. I said, I want to know how this got screwed up. How did we forget? That's all I wanted. Tell me how we forgot. And went on about preparing for my day. Didn't hear anything more. It's just this quietness. So 30 minutes before this show, I'm in the kitchen getting my tea ready. I invoke favor on all of you before I go on. And Source answered. The answer is right there, by the way. If you can see it on my whiteboard, it's right there. I think, at least this is what I got, I think I know what happened to us. Humanity, Homo sapiens. I think I know what happened to us. And now it's just a question, can we remember or can we find the evidence? But I think there was a solar flash, a micronova, whatever you want to call it. I think it wiped our brains. And it would. Such an event would have a brain wiping effect. I question, did this resonate all the way down to the spirit level? Did it wipe our spirits as well? Think about it, a planet of amnesiacs. I'm going to do a show on this. I think it's worthy to at least begin to look at the science, begin to look at it from a practical application of why you would begin to have a religion. If you forgot who you were, I mean, think about it. You would have no way of knowing. So everything you discover is a new discovery. Think about this, folks. Maybe we've had it completely wrong. Now, take this further. What if there was an alien presence that observed this? I mean, I'm beginning to believe that not all the ETs are good ones. If this reality has taught me anything, it would indicate there would be more evil than good and very few righteous. For us, for our cause. So imagine if you had the ability of ascending to consciousness. You don't need a physical body. You can manifest one if you want it. But your consciousness would reach out into the cosmos. You would feel the vibration. You would see this solar flash taking place with our star. That would have given off a signature. And you come in and you observe us, and we're all walking around going, what happened? What? Where am I? Who are you? You don't talk like me. He talks like me. He must be, you see where I'm going with this? And what if there were a few that escaped it? Now, what could you do with that type of knowledge? Why, you can manipulate the very fabric of the societal consciousness of man himself. You could create a God and a religion behind it for total control. And I'm contending that we were much more intelligent. I contend that we may have been on the progress of where we should be today with an IQ of 2,718, instead of the average IQ of the person on Earth, which has now fallen below 120. So there you go. I had a lot more, but we'll stop there. I'll get with Julie later on, and I think we're going to have a good discussion. If, in fact, this adrenochrome is in all the meat coming from slaughterhouses, it's all up here, folks. You can control this. You control everything. Hey, Brian, good to see you, my friend. Had a good talk with Brian yesterday. I'll tell you what, missed Brian. I think he's going to get back into the saddle. He'll tell his story, but hey, that flu, apparently it has kicked some serious butts for a lot of people out there. So keep yourself good. So there you go. Yeah, Brian. So I just brought Brian back. Hey, let's go. Now, Carolyn and I, Bolvin and I will be doing her show, chilling out. Think we'll probably do it next week. Yesterday I was just off. I just was cyclically connected to Patrick. I mean, and a lot of us were. I think that's why a lot of us were feeling, as empaths, that sorrow. And so, yeah. So we're going to get Brian on here when he's ready to come back. I want him on. Lots to think about. Think about this solar flash, folks. Started applying the thought to your own thinking. I mean, it's evident that we're amnesiacs. As I said before, if man could really know where we came from, if that memory was ever established, we wouldn't need religion. We'd have that answer. All right, folks, I appreciate you so much. Thank you. It's been a delight. Y'all are just, this is far out. And thank you all. I mean, this is a family. I kind of look at it as our coffee time, tea time, etc. time, whatever. And we're growing. And thank you for the emails. Thank you for the fellowship. And I just speak the same thing. Folks, think about the faith. I'm going to teach it exactly like I used to teach it when I used to teach it in sales, and applying the biblical principle that I knew then into the business principle. And it will make you a top performer. It will take the lack out of your life. It really will. It'll heal your body. And it will elevate your consciousness as well. I just never applied it in that direction. Imagine applying my faith and saying my level of consciousness is going to increase. Well, I've put that out to the universe. Well, of course it's going to increase. The universe always answers. So, yeah. Anyway, peace, folks. Appreciate it. Favor to you all. Thank you. Consciously aware. Thank you. Looking for the next letter from source. I think the connection is getting stronger. Joshua, you correct me if I'm not right on that, but this is what I am sensing. This group, and we'll find Patrick with his blessing. We're going to find his protege. He's going to come in. And I think as we continue to reach out to the cosmos, I believe, folks, we can reach out beyond any planet. I think we can make psychic connections with other worlds. That's where I want to take talking with the planets. I think this group can do it. We could be a focus. Imagine this. China has the largest radio telescope. Huge sucker. But I believe that the power that an individual human puts out psychically, when connected to 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, we become a force that would be recognized. I think that this is how, if there is in fact greater intelligence out there, that this is how they would communicate. If someone was to answer you cyclically back, you would know that that would be an evolved species, wouldn't you? Just a thought. All right, folks, thank you. Much love to you. Namaste. Be good. Love yourself. Have faith in yourself. And folks, we'll turn this ship around, and we're going to make it turn that frown upside down. All right. Bye-bye, folks. See you tomorrow. Bye.